Welcome to 101 with Colette Linden. This week we are interviewing our mayoral candidates, and today we have Tobin Kern. Hi, Tobin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very well. It's
good,
so nice to meet you. I do have to say, my youngest always says, "Hey, it's the sign. That guy put the sign." And you've made an impact on my 11-year-old. So thank you for that. And it's just for everybody to know, it's just being more aware of what materials you're using and what.
Right. So that's very much in line with what I intend to do and why I got started. And I'll tell you a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So when people started entering their hats into the running for mayor, I wasn't seeing the kind of leadership or discussion on the important topics that we need to cover. In my view, there are three crises that the city face, one being climate change, the others being affordable housing and the ongoing addictions epidemic.
Yeah.
So to get back to climate change, I mean, if you Google any top 10 list of imminent threats to humanity, there will be ones that we can't do anything about, like nuclear weapons or runaway AI. But climate change absolutely is something we can do, and at a municipal level. If you look across the province, you'll see that it's cities leading the way. We can't wait around for the federal government or the province. So it seems. They have their role to play for sure, but it's cities that are taking the lead. And you mentioned that my signs, and that's part of my MO. If you're going to talk the talk, you need to walk the walk. And I'm very proud of my signs. They're zero waste. They're made of material that Value Village can sell. So there's an instance of how I want to be to lead the way. I've also pledged that if I were elected mayor, I'd have zero transportation emissions. I'd use public transit or active transportation when on city business. So I mean, my signs are part of my intention to lead and broach discussion about what's important in the community.
On the topic of transportation throughout the city, working to downtown Toronto, cycling is, first of all, a faster option when you're in the downtown. But it was a popular option. We were just discussing this in the office the other day about, putting your Ilunion or your Tunian, renting the bicycle or a Segway, going up and down our beautiful waterfront.
For sure.
And I feel that would mirror what you're just trying to say as well. I mean, I understand what you're saying, that you would pledge to take the bus during city business, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
or any type of...
Or take a bicycle. And I'm glad that you brought up the bicycles, because really, public transit could be a mix of a variety of things. Like you said, a bike share. Some cities have electric scooters you can jump on. And I don't see why, if there is, moving into the future, if there's autonomous electric vehicles, why they couldn't be part of the mix. So really, that's the way of the future. Most cities are pursuing expanding their public transit, and I don't see why the Sault shouldn't do the same.
Yeah, for sure. Our bus routes currently, are they at where they need to be in order to service that you think? Or
that's a good question about routes. In terms of frequency and being able to get places, no, I don't think they're where they need to be. Definitely we need, like, if you're going to have people rely on it as their form of transportation, definitely there has to be better service. There's lots of discussion about whether or not we should move the hub. But I mean, potentially you could look at a hubless system, a grid system, like there are in many cities, where you just connect with the routes that the buses go up and down and across, and you take the routes that will get you to where you need to go. Yeah.
Okay, so what else are you running with your platform? You mentioned the opioid epidemic. It's scary. It is so scary because, as I was saying to another candidate this morning, this is not something that it's going to happen just because you make that amount of money or not enough money, or you live in that part of Sault Ste. Marie. No, this is an affliction that will affect the person probably to your right, or you're sitting in your lunchroom, sitting on the bus beside you.
Right.
It's out of control. I mean, it's a hand in hand with the crime and opioid crisis and mental health and addictions. And I've had the privilege in this position to be able to go to the centers that are opening up, the old Sault Star building for one. But and they're doing a fantastic job, but I think it's 25 units, and I don't know what I have to look more into it more, but what about the help from afterwards? Like, counseling or helping them find a trade or doing something to not just, dry out, but put them on a new path.
Yeah, for sure. It's absolutely a big crisis. And, if you talk to any of the service providers, they don't have the tools that they need. There's a whole, this is a disease, and we've seen how our province and our country can mobilize when we effectively want to address a public health crisis, but we're not seeing that kind of mobilization. And you're correct to say that, it doesn't matter what demographic you're from, people from all walks of life suffer with addiction. And the problem's only getting worse, and there are other problems that it certainly creates. And if I were elected mayor, I would advocate fiercely for the service providers to be able to have the tools they need. I'm not an expert, but I know that they don't have what they need, and there's definitely a role in leadership to advocate for those things. Even if it means drawing our federal and provincial counterparts into the press, and even if it means taking to the streets to get the point across. This is a serious issue. People are dying. It's a public health crisis, and we need to treat it as such and have the resources that we need at our disposal.
It is absolutely a public health crisis, and thank you for saying that. As I mentioned as well in another interview, we receive communique from APH quite often, and they're great at communicating things to help communicate their word. But there's an influx of people who are overdosing, don't know what's going on. Please remind the public. We know you're going to touch these. Like, this is the point we're at now. And also I feel like there's at one time it was something perhaps you didn't talk about, and maybe you'd go in a corner, or you would stumble across somebody who was using. But it's a little bit more public these days. It's out and about. It's in our parks. So there's the flip side of that as well, because there are people who choose not to. And yes, it is an illness and disease. This is not. But there's the other. Our kids are playing at the park, and there's glass or needles or something laying around. Yeah, that is that in itself is a huge issue. So for sure, it's a domino effect. So
Sorry, you're absolutely right that it affects the lives of people who are not active substance users. Right, like you said, it can affect our social lives. For small businesses, oftentimes the addictions are connected with criminality, because people have to pursue or people are pursuing the means they need in order to obtain what they need. Yes. But there are tools to address that, and other communities, and even in Ontario, are using them. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I think the idea of exploring safer supply has legs, because basically it has the potential, in my view, to decouple the criminality from the substance use. So here you have, under medical supervision, people replacing substances that they're using with a safe supply. So you're addressing the health component, but you're also potentially addressing the unsavory aspects, so the criminality around it. People are no longer who struggle with addictions are no longer always focusing on how they're going to obtain their supply. They know where it is, and then they can focus on potentially getting better.
Yeah. Okay. Other key issues, when you're going out to speak with the community members, what are some issues that they're raising to you or concerns?
Crime and affordable housing. Affordable housing is huge. I mean, unfortunately, and this isn't, this is a problem that's true across the country. There just isn't a stock of affordable housing. And, really, this is a story of chronic underinvestment over decades. But, we're reaping reaping the rewards of that underinvestment. So really we need to do whatever we can to increase our stock of affordable housing. So even if and really all options should be on the table.
Such as what?
Well, definitely, we need to call the province and the feds out for the situation that we're in. I mean, basically our real estate market has become a casino for high rollers, which is occupying a lot of the or taking up a lot of the that housing that families could access. But there's also that underinvestment. There's not the development of affordable housing that we once saw in this country. And that needs to start up.
Yeah.
So advocacy first. It has to be a priority, and we have to be talking about it all the time because something has to be done. Either if that's, like I said, I don't mind making the conversation public if polite conversation doesn't get us anywhere. That's what I think leadership is. But really, all options need to be on the table. If we have to, I understand that financial or municipal coffers are limited, and we can't, we only have a limited amount of money to build affordable housing, and we can't expect to, keep increasing the tax rates to pay for this. However, there's certain things we could do. We could look at leveraging city assets, perhaps, to get some units built, focusing our spending on more on affordable housing rather than other optional expenditures.
Yeah. I like the way you put that, optional expenditures.
Well,
I feel it.
Well, if you, to me, because I work in social services, I work with people who are homeless and precariously housed. And basically that situation, it's a devastating experience. At best, you're living in crisis. At worst, you're accumulating trauma by not having that home, by not having that door to lock and having sanctuary.
And your own safe space.
Absolutely. It's sanctuary, right? So, it needs to be the focus of our attention and also our spending too.
Yeah. Tell me what you think. What are your what are your thoughts on the way our current council has spent their money?
Right. So going back to my climate change and environmental perspective, each time we choose to build something, it has environmental implications. There's that carbon footprint. So for me, every bit of building has to be looked at and it has to be wisely done. And to me, I'm conservative both with funding use for building, but also resources. Like looking at it, do these things need to be built? Can we look at refurbishing something? Looking at it both from a fiscal point of view, but also from a carbon footprint point of view.
Okay. Yeah.
So, we have to be prudent.
Unfortunately, over the weekends, we heard that St. Veronica's school in flames. So there is a scenario right then and there that building has been abandoned for however long.
Right.
And perhaps if it was turned into the use of something, it wouldn't be people breaking in or starting. And I don't know the ins and outs of the case itself, but you know where I'm going. And also with the city purchasing a land a couple million over or a couple zeros over its asking price, and it's just sitting there, and it's probably the first thing that anybody crossing over sees of our beautiful city. Why are we leaving these proproperties untampered? Why are we not doing anything with them?
That's a great question. Do we have needs that could be addressed through our spending? And absolutely. So those are great questions. I mean, and it's easy to criticize past council. I mean, but you raise valid points, and I have the same questions myself.
You're not going to serve everyone everything that they want, right?
No.
I mean, in your own home, you can't. It's hard to do that, but you've got 75,000 people and whatnot, and of course you're going to have pushback. But paying attention to how you spend the money is a key component for a good mayor, a good leader.
Absolutely.
And knowing when, and I will attribute this to Matthew Shoemaker, he did mention this, is he did mention, when is enough for projects? And that's a good way to look at it. When do we stop saying, okay, more money, less money.
For sure.
And what projects are better than the others that receive more money?
Absolutely. And I would say, what's been going on in our city has been almost at an emergency level for some time. So I have to question, how long has that been the best use of our money?
That's right. Yeah. Emergency preparedness plans are also something that I feel should be talked about, completed, sitting on a shelf we just came through a pandemic, so clearly maybe this might raise concerns to some others as well.
For sure.
Succession planning is another thing that I feel if the city doesn't get a hold of, where are we going to be in 10 and 15, 20 years from now?
For sure.
Local business owners were horrible in the last couple of years what they've had to do, private small business owners are trying to maintain and live and maintain their business. You know, that's double duty there.
For sure.
And, you know, so how are we going to keep moving our city forward? And do you see any visions for the city? How do you feel about engaging the younger generation to stay or come back? Should they go away for post-secondary? These are all things that kind of go through my mind as a mother of two young boys. So I wanted to bring those concerns to you as a resident as well. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's great that you brought up succession planning, because basically with climate change and our national commitments to climate change, the way our city will be in 10, 15 years will likely be a lot different. So we have to consider that in our planning. And I honestly don't see that from in the thoughts of past council, including the folks who are running from past council and from the other candidates. I don't hear them talking about this or considering this. And if you look to other cities, they're way ahead of us. And we're quite behind in terms of how we're going to set up what our infrastructure needs to look like and how our transportation will be. And where our power will be coming from. So that's a great question, and definitely climate change has to be a top priority when making these decisions. Absolutely. Now, you asked about how to engage youth and keep people coming to our city and our kids returning. And I think the best thing to do is basically by investing in our city, making this be a place that they've enjoyed being and want to come home to. You know, when I've been posed the question, you know, how do we attract business? Well, you know, I think we attract, if you look at where innovators tend to go, they go to communities that care about people. They go to communities that invest in their people, that make sure that everyone can have a fair go at it. And where the questions of equity and fairness are addressed. And I think we have a bit of a way to go. But I think those values usually are the same values shared by a lot of young people, as well as innovators. So
I would say that this week specifically, we see a lot more entertainment, a lot more concerts going on at the GFL. My son is going to one tonight.
Nice.
Really excited. And actually, I'm covering one tomorrow night. So it's nice to see that being brought to now. Obviously, we're coming out of a pandemic, so clearly that. But before, and again, I've only been here for 3 years, but before, from what I've heard, there weren't many concerts, but perhaps at one time there were, instead of going across. So you know, things like that, or festivals. Like I found that the Rotary Festival was fun this year. There was a lot of people at it. You know, things like that might engage, but. Obviously, some more competitive sports. We do have great sports here too, so it is a great place to live. So I think
absolutely it is. Yeah.
So I thank you for being here. Is there anything that you'd like to add or say to those watching?
Absolutely. So, you know, the way I see our community, it's a great community, but there are crises that face us, and we can't look away. We can't afford to look away. We need to invest in our community. And what I suggest is that people get out there this October 24th and vote for someone who represents what you believe in, who you think will act on your behalf.
That's great. Thank you so much. It was really nice to meet you, Tobin. I appreciate you being here, and thank you for finally someone engaging my 11-year-old into municipal politics.
I'm happy to do it, and thank you very much, Colette. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have today for One-on-One with Colette Linden. Have a great afternoon.